definitely saw Bank of Queensland shares rallying, so bring that into the picture for us as well.
Brooke, we certainly did. We saw some of those smaller sort of regional banks such as Bank of Queensland, Bendigo and Adelaide Bank, another one as well, which had a pretty strong performance today. And I think this is a result of some of those recommendations in that inquiry. If they potentially do go ahead, I think the big banks are going to have to start facing some increased competition from some of these smaller financial institutions such as these regional banks. So I think off the back of that, we did see a pretty strong performance in some of those smaller banks. And of course, we did see a lot of those major banks coming under pressure. We do know that they are probably going to be the biggest losers out of all of this. It is going to be bad news for some of those larger institutions as they've sort of faced a pretty level, competitive, regulated playing field. And certainly I think on the flip side it will be fairly good news for some of its competitors on the lower end of the scale, so some of those smaller banks. So I think that's potentially why we did see a stronger performance from the likes of Bendigo and Adelaide and Bank of Queensland as well.
Okay, you had that performance offset, Leanne, by some of the mining stocks today. What did you make of that kind of counterbalance that left us flat overall?
We certainly did, Brooke. I mean, of course, we did see that financial space really coming under pressure, but that materials sector did close up around 0.25% in the end. We did see that iron ore price up overnight, so saw some of those iron ore players pushing up that materials sector, but of course some of those copper stocks as well as those gold stocks were dragging down lower on that sector. And of course we did have quite a number of reports out today. Whitehaven coal was one of particular note. That was the best performer on the ASX 200 today. That was up about 5% on the close, and of course it did come through with a pretty strong production report for its coal. Production for June rose about 27%, and annually was up about 26%, and of course in terms of their sales it was also pretty strong. So I think in terms of this stock though, the negative being that the coal prices, we know that they've certainly been coming under pressure. They are at pretty low levels at the moment, and this stock really is highly leveraged to any recovery in those coal prices. So something to be mindful of long term, but certainly today's announcement was pretty positive. And of course we also had positive announcements from others, that copper stock OzMinerals as well, which was another strong performance.
I think that this will pretty much wrap it up for the day though. But I mean, that US earnings season, that's I guess what we're headed to now. We've got our own reporting season coming up August. Is this US earnings season really going to give us some momentum, do you think? That's what we're looking for, isn't it?
It certainly is, Brooke, and I certainly do think it will give us some momentum, although today wasn't a very good example of that. Of course, we saw Citigroup overnight reporting pretty strongly, but of course we've had this negative performance today. But I certainly think off the back of Citigroup's strong performance overnight, that strong report that's come through, that should provide a bit of optimism in terms of coming into this reporting season. We know that a lot of the financials and major banks are still due to report. Of course, out tonight we have some of the other major banks, JP Morgan, we have Goldman Sachs, Intel and Johnson & Johnson as well, which are due to report, so that will be certainly all eyes on that. But I certainly do think if we continue seeing some stronger reports coming through, that will provide some positive momentum. I think the overall consensus is that we are going to see about 6% earnings growth across this US reporting season, potentially sales growth of about 3%. So certainly I think that could provide a bit of optimism, certainly for the US market, and hopefully that would trickle across into our market as well.
Okay, thanks very much. Leanne Jones from